presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate with you from the first kick to the last pitch. And as you can see behind me here, we have a little bit different background and a different setup after my adventures of the weekend, taking in the App State versus JMU game, and then luckily taking in the Panthers versus Chiefs, which, I don't know, Marv, that was insane, right? That wasn't supposed to be close. And
no, they played out of their minds. That was good to see.
It was a great game to be at for the entertainment value. My son's a big Mahomes fan, so we had to try and get him down there. Well, from Charlotte, we took off and spent about 8 hours in the truck today to get up to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the parents are about 3 hours from Penn State main campus. So they are some Penn State fans. They've also jumped on board to become some App State fans. But yeah, that's where I am. That's why the background looks different. The setup is a travesty if you were to see it, but luckily you won't see that aspect. Marv, you're also in a slightly different place. So where are you at tonight?
I am at a Home 2 Suites in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Ooh, big bustling metropolis of Hendersonville, huh?
It's a nice town, man. I don't know if you've ever been here, but it's a pretty nice spot.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I want to say if I refereed some soccer there or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, though. Maybe they came to a place I was at. Okay. But Ben James saying what's up to everyone and Wolves up after their big victory. We'll have Sam Stubbs stopping by to talk that one with us here in just a little bit. And as always present, Mr. Artie Cat himself. Hope he's doing well this evening. I will be jumping around a little bit. So if you're trying to comment on Instagram, I'm not sure if I'm going to see him tonight because we've got so many other things I need to put up on the cue card. I usually have 3 screens I'm operating off, Marv. I think you knew that, right?
No, I did not.
Okay, so usually it's the laptop and then 2 extra monitors to help me run this whole setup, understand what I'm doing, have spots and spaces for everything to keep it clear and concise. I am operating off of 1 screen down here tonight in the basement. Again, hopefully you won't see much of it, but we tried to. This is literally a setup I had since I was a high schooler that I set up to like conceal the staircase that has just wood framing behind me with a bunch of crap behind it.
Is the basement of your parents' house? Was that your high school bedroom?
It wasn't the bedroom, but it was the hangout. This basement is like the footprint of the house, so we had space to like shoot hockey pucks. My brother set up like a cardboard box and shot pellet guns into this thing, and
nice.
Just watched movies down here. It's unfinished though; it's completely unfinished. You got cinder block walls and everything else surrounding me. It's actually just like my basement at my house now.
Sweet.
Yeah, and Seth's saying first world problems, Dom. Yeah, it is first world problems. I won't deny any of that. But
first world problems would be if Seth was on the podcast tonight. But hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, some people are just too busy to hang out with us, So
too busy to hang out with their friends and talk football.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of talking football, we'll go ahead and throw up a better background than what we're dealing with here. Although, Marv, I actually think yours is pretty sharp tonight.
Oh, I appreciate it. I was showing Dom earlier, this hotel is brand new. It's the first night it's been open. I tried to shut a door and it wouldn't shut because all the plastic stuff is still over all the door fixtures, so it wouldn't shut. It still smells like paint in here.
Does it really?
Yeah. When you walk in, it's noticeable. It's like, this is fresh. Oh
man. Well, it's a good thing. It's better than most hotels that smell like smoke or something else, right?
Very true.
Yeah. My dad went to a game day with me at James Madison last year, and we stayed at like the little shoddiest hotel because it was cheap and easy to get on short notice. Because I think I got tickets like the weekend of, like a week before, I guess is what I should say. And most of the nice stuff was taken, so we spent the night in some little rickety place. So yeah, you're in a better situation than we were for that one.
Nice.
All right, let's get to the first one, and the first one on the docket was one of the bigger talking points.
Before you get started, I'm
okay.
going to drop this nugget that I've been teasing you with. So Captain Obvious here, right? Like to win football games, especially down the stretch in November when you're trying to go to a conference championship, you can't turn the ball over, right? Like turnover, if you win the turnover battle, you're probably going to win the game. Would you dare to guess what the turnover margin between winning and losing teams was this weekend?
Oh, I did this a little while ago on one show. Maybe that was with TJ. Well, this weekend. Oh man.
I'll spoil it. Plus 17.
17. Wow, I've never been close.
Only one team that won turned the ball over, and they only turned the ball over once. Losing teams turned the ball over 18 times. Now, real trivia question. Can you name the one team that turned the ball over and still won the game?
App State.
Nope.
No.
Georgia Southern turned the ball over one time but forced 4 turnovers. Every other team that won did not turn the ball over. So, once again, shocking breaking news. If you turn the ball over a lot, you probably don't win the football game.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you what I was going to lean toward just to throw something out there. I was going to say like 8 or 9.
Yeah,
but you said 18.
18 turnovers from losing teams, only one by a winning team. But that team also forced 4 turnovers. So there you go. Plus 3.
Yep. That's insanity, though. I did not realize. I did not. I mean, I looked over all the stats and everything, but I guess I didn't come close to adding them up. But that is an insane.
I started going through my show notes, and I was like, wow, 3 turnovers to none, 4 turnovers to none, 2 turnovers to none. I was like, how many times have winning teams turned the ball over? Once.
Yeah, that's that had to be more than the one I did, because I think the weekend that I looked at it, the total of turnovers wasn't even 18. I think
no, there was a bunch this weekend, and not only turnovers. We'll get into as we go through individual games, but pick sixes, turnovers on downs, special teams touchdowns. I mean, we'll talk about one here. Man, changed the course of a game in a hurry.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Yeah, so let's go. Let's talk about this one, because that special teams touchdown has got to be the one you're referring to here in this game, as James Madison took on App State. Then we'll get into the snowball aspect of this one.
Let's do it. Both you and I were there, and I'll jump into the snowball thing right now. So because it's all that anybody wants to talk about. There were a lot of snowballs thrown at the James Madison football team as they were coming in.
Yes.
Seth was sitting with me, and to be honest with you, they looked like they were relishing it. It's like it was almost. I think I told Seth, I was like, man, we pissed them off. They're going to come out and punch us right in the mouth.
Which they did.
Because 3 possessions into the game, it was like, man, here we go again. But we get a turnover, score a touchdown, get them to go 3 and out, go for it on 4th down, and negative territory, get the first down, big pass play, touchdown, then get them to go 3 and out, block the punt, and that changed the entire trajectory of the game. App's defense kind of shut JMU down in the second half, made them look very pedestrian. App didn't light the world up in the second half offensively either, but besides the block punt for a touchdown, JMU went for it on 4th and 2 at their own 31-yard line and could not convert. And that was, I think there was 12 minutes left in the 4th quarter, and Seth had already left because he was going to the Watauga game at that point. But I looked at my wife and I was like, they don't need to do this quite yet. Like, they could punt the ball, continue to play defense, maybe try to flip the field, and we only got a field goal out of it. Probably would have liked 7 out of it, but it didn't matter. But man, just I think that was a gamble they did not need to take at that point in the game, and it bit them in the butt.
Yeah, I was actually questioning that greatly. I wish I was sitting beside you, because I would have been like, dude, I don't know if I'd – at some point you have to, right? But like you said, I think there was about 12 minutes left. I think you're remembering correctly, because I think that's kind of what I had seen is like, wow, I'm shocked that they are going for this this early in the 4th quarter. And Artie is reminding us of the malice in the palace when the man of world peace took place after I guess it was a drink. It was a drink really that was thrown at him, right?
It was. Yeah, he was laying down on the scorer's table, and that guy threw a drink, and bad decision.
Yeah, not didn't turn out too well there. Seth says I may be right, which he's referring to Sean Clark being back for another year. We have Iverson Reed talking about the fact that Beck is now losing favor with some of the fan base in Conway after Coastal's vicious loss, which we'll touch on here later too. But yeah, getting back to the snowball aspect, let me get your thoughts. Fair or foul? I mean, do you think, like you said, you felt like the Duke's players were, eating it up and used it to their advantage? Like we said, they started
Yeah.
off the game scoring the only points for the first 2-3 possessions of the game, really. So were you okay with it? Did you think it was overkill? What are your thoughts on that?
So at the beginning, like, listen, you give a bunch of college kids that have had time to get well lubricated, and that's going to happen. Like, if JMU fans for a second look, oh, if it was a James Madison, that would have happened. That's crap. I don't think so. I think that was going to happen. App State needs to move where the visitors come in, like having them come in right beside Miller Hill and the student section of Miller Hills, where a lot of students sit. Just not a good idea. I think there were some issues with Marshall a couple years ago at that tunnel. I didn't have a big problem with it at the beginning. Now, as the game went on, there was like just random snowballs being thrown, and it just got a little bit played out. But if James Madison would have won, you wouldn't have heard about it. They would have been like, "Oh, thank you to the App State students for riling us up. You really lit a fire underneath us." I don't buy for a second that not just James Madison fan, just any student section anywhere across the country, given that opportunity to do that, is going to do the same thing. It did get a little annoying at points. I mean, even where I sit, there was people throwing snowballs at like the James Madison mascot. It's like, man, just give that crap a break. Like it's a little ridiculous at that point. But the viral clip that's going on, it didn't impact the game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right with you. The stuff at the start of the game, you're coming out. This is the atmosphere we're talking about with college football, right? I saw people saying they're ice balls, they're not snowballs. They were not ice balls.
No,
that snow was the wet, fluffy kind, and they were compacting it and throwing it. It's snow. It was breaking apart. I saw numerous ones hit. One almost hit. This is the part I will agree with you on. So I'm fine with the entrance. Okay, I've asked a lot of people that had no part in this just to make sure I'm not crazy, thinking like that's kind of funny and cool. And like you said, the players were like this, like, come on, bring it on, So if they weren't kind of into it in that regard, I think they would have allowed them to run out of the tunnel immediately. Say, hey, get these guys out of here. Let's go. Let's get out of the field.
They were in the tunnel forever.
Yeah, so that part of it was, I don't know if they were being told to wait or what, but they were eating it up, I think. And I saw a couple of JMU players look like they were throwing them back. So again, fair all the way around to me. I think it's fine. Now, I will agree with you. The stuff that's throughout the game, once the play's about to start, when they're trying to hit players, which also I will say this because I can confirm it, and you can confirm this as well being there. There was App State students that were throwing them at their own players, at their own bench, at their own fans. An elderly couple behind me almost got hit right in the face as a one from the second level came down to the first level, landed literally in my seat and broke apart. I don't know if you thought you were hitting somebody from that second level or not, but you're definitely not hitting them when they're sitting at their bench. Knock it off. That's close enough for some people that you could really cause damage if you hit a guy with his helmet off when you're throwing them. So yes, that kind of stuff is classless and it doesn't need to be happening. Now, when they're coming on and off the field with their helmets on and all that, you're going to, like you said, one, expect it. Two, they kind of like it. They kind of use it to juice themselves up and get themselves going. I didn't have any problem with that. But yes, I will agree with anybody and everybody who says after that, knock it the hell off. It doesn't need to continue. You don't need to have stray snowballs hitting kids and older people in the face who have no part of this. They don't want to throw any themselves. They weren't okay with it happening in the first place, type of thing. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the clips that are going around, and I put one out too. I don't really have a problem with those aspects. So, I think that part was
snowballs.
They're that part. I wouldn't put past some of the kids in this fan base, to be totally honest. Over under 350 App fans come to the Borough by Riley. I'm gonna say less, just because of it being like a Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah. Even though they did get this big win against James Madison, I think it's going to be tough to see a large number of App fans come down. but I could be wrong. I don't know. I haven't seen enough out of the fan base talking about going to the game that makes me think a ton of people are going to be headed down there. So
Yeah, and just in general, most App fans do not enjoy going to Statesboro.
yeah, there's something with like some history there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
Hostile environment.
Each other very much.
Yeah, definitely not. So the two Tylers from Tyler's Talking Sports were there. I unfortunately did not get to meet up with them. My wife and kid wanted to leave at halftime, to be totally honest. I convinced them to stay a little bit longer. It was cold. We did not come dressed for all of the cold and a little bit of the wet, right? When we first got into town, it was kind of drizzly, rain, and certainly cold. And we did not have the rainproof gear. We had maybe the cold gear, but not the rain stuff. But here's their thoughts, because again, they're a little impartial here. They obviously got brought in as kind of some App fans for the day, and I know that they've kind of wanted to come and check out a game, and luckily got to see a lot of their. I've been trying to keep up with their stuff. So much driving lately, I haven't sat down and be able to watch all the videos they've put out. But they say the entrance was fine. It was the random ones throughout the game that was a little overkill, but JMU was loving it. Even at the half, JMU players were asking them to throw them. Yes, they were over there close to that side. They were just above the student section, I believe, is kind of where they were situated at. And I agree with them. I mean, they said it there, just like I kind of said it earlier. I think when you talk about rivalries and intensity in college game, that's kind of what you want to see, because yes, people could be harmed. I won't say that like it couldn't happen, but the likelihood that you get really hurt from a snowball, besides like a damn that stung type of thing, I'm cool with that. Once I water ballooned our high school stands with two of my friends and used an old school launcher, 1 hit out of 3.
Once again, the snowballs did not affect the outcome of the game.
No,
that's whatever. And the JMU coach, I think, in his post-game press conference handled it very well when he was asked about it. But it's once again, if JMU would have won, I don't think you hear anything negative about it, except for, hey, thanks for fueling the fire. You really got us riled up. But didn't affect the outcome. Like I said, what affected the outcome was, I think it was the block punt that was returned for a touchdown, the premature going for it on 4th down. App had 0 penalties. I cannot remember an App State game where we didn't commit a penalty. We had the one that was called on offside right at the end of the 3rd quarter. They went back and reviewed it and saw the time had expired before we jumped off. But yeah, I mean, Monty Marshall, 4th straight 100-yard game. Kai Jackson, 5 catches, 162 and a touchdown. And App State's defense just played lights out in the second half. That was the story of the game. Forget the snowballs. If we were in Harrisburg, they would have done the exact same thing to us. Yeah.
I passed JMU's Bridgeport Stadium on the way up 81 today, so that was cool. I showed it to myself. I mean, I will tell you this. This game notwithstanding, I got to go take game day in at JMU. That was the first time I'd passed 81 a billion times and seen JMU Stadium from small to much bigger now, obviously. But for those of you who haven't been or have thought about going, like the campus is absolutely beautiful. I mean, they have like these old colonial looking buildings. I mean, you've seen game day, you've seen kind of the look, but it's just really impressive. It's on both sides of the interstate because there's a lot of athletic fields and whatnot, and students that live on the other side of 81 compared to where the football stadium and some of the school buildings are at on that side. But really top notch, first class stuff that they've got over there. So a really impressive venue and impressive campus overall there in Harrisonburg for the Dukes of JMU. A lot of promise still, even with this loss to App State. They will still be going bowling.
Yep.
And G. Wills got the damn job done. As a Monarchs fan, he was happy to see App State pull this one out over his rivals there in JMU. But let's get going now to the next game of the weekend that had A-State hosting ULM, and we'd like to welcome College Football Dogs writer Samuel Stubbs to the stage. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Nice, yeah. Glad you can join us tonight. Appreciate you writing some articles and following along with these Red Wolves throughout the season here, Sam. I know you're like not even just double booked. I mean, you write about NASCAR, college football. You probably write about like space science and everything else. What else are you covering?
Oh dear. Well, college basketball season's in the thick of it. Speaking of Arkansas, they are up by 52 right now over
Wow.
Maryland Eastern Shore. So
Oh, what a
I'll
close
probably yeah, close one, real nail biter here.
Oh
So
man.
doing some writing about that. But yeah, NASCAR season just ended. Thankfully, college football is there to pick up the slack for me. And when that's over, college basketball will be here, and then NASCAR starts right back up in February. So I'm never a dull moment here. But yeah, it was a great time in Jonesboro. Beautiful day for football, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with the crowd, I'm sure. But good day, a really fun game. I appreciate the Red Wolves treating me to two very good games when I've been up there. South Alabama was a thriller. This one was too. I think of their 7 wins this year, 6 have been one-score games. Their nickname, I was just eavesdropping on some people in the press box before the kickoff, and they said that their nickname is the Cardiac Pack, and that's very apt nickname for a team that has won 6 one-score games. They either win by one possession or they get blown out. That's Arkansas State football this year. The Southern Miss game is the only outlier where I think they beat them by like 25 or something like that. But that's been the only outlier. So yeah, it was a fun game and a big game, and I'll let y'all guys take over it and tell me what you want to talk about, because there was a lot to delve into from this one.
Yeah, well, you touched on the crowd, so I want to know about that. So, A-State over the past several seasons has had some rough times, right?
Mhm.
This season was expected to be a little bit better. I think I had them as like second in the West before the season started. Obviously, they're not. Well, I shouldn't say obviously not, because they really are second in the West, literally right now.
Yeah.
But throughout much of the season, it was kind of a question mark about where they'd end up because, like you said, those one-score games. One of those includes that home opener against Central Arkansas, which probably had some people concerned because of how that game ended. We've gone over that already, but I don't know where to put this team at this point. And the bottom line is, no matter what you think about them as far as the eye test is concerned, they just continue to win. Is that drawing the fans in? What was the fan support like as far as noise level and maybe just total attendance there?
Yeah, so I have my stat sheet right here, my handy dandy stat sheet. When I was there for the South Alabama game, I think their stadium, I think it seats around 34,000. The attendance for the South Alabama game was just over 21,000. And this one, for this game, keep in mind, beautiful day. I think the high was like 58 degrees, not a cloud in the sky in Jonesboro. Football weather, at least for us in the South that don't consider football weather to be -12 and snowing like they do in Cleveland. But it was 14,000 for a team that had just clinched a bowl berth, for a team that has now won 7 games, is second in their division on a beautiful day against a pretty solid opponent. I mean, you're not playing like Arkansas is in basketball tonight. You're not playing Maryland Eastern Shore. You're playing a pretty good Sun Belt team. But it was weird to me, and I texted a friend of mine who went to A-State, and he was there when they had, I think it was a 3-year stretch when they had, I think, Brian Harsin, Gus Malzahn, and Hugh Freeze as coach 3 years in a row. And then I think that bled into the Blake Anderson era. And he was like, it was packed like every single week. And he said they don't love day games up there, which I think it's just a given in any sporting event. Any event, you're probably going to have more fans show up at night. But it was weird to me to see so few fans. I'm looking in, and you see people walking in still 5 minutes before kickoff. And I look out at the parking lot where I parked, and it's like I can clearly see my car. The parking lot's like half full. Where is everybody? And it's not even Thanksgiving week yet. I mean, there's still students on campus. And I think I looked out the student section. They say it's weird. It's on the visitor side. But I looked down there. There's probably 7, 8 students maybe. And
Wow.
I will credit the fans who were there. They got loud. Like it was pretty loud, even up where I was in the third level of the press box. It was pretty loud when the game stealing interception. It got loud. The touchdown they had to take the lead. It got loud. But just comparing it, and the only other college football games I've really been to were Razorback games, and that's 75,000 people. I was there for Texas a couple weeks ago, and that was the loudest environment I've ever been in for a sporting event, including NASCAR races, where I've been sitting on pit road covering the race. I mean, this incredible how loud 75,000 people is. But it is slightly concerning to me that you have a school up there that, I mean, it's not, you mentioned the rough years. That's true. They had some rough years. They had 3 years in a row where they didn't make a bowl game, and Butch Jones' first 2 years there were bad. But it's like, man, I mean, show up, guys. You got a winning football team here that's 7-4, a team on the rise, a team that's made a bowl 2 years in a row, and that next year I'd say they're a sleeper, maybe in that next category up in between favorite and sleeper to win the Sun Belt. I mean, just looking at where they are now, I don't know why people aren't showing up. They're in game like fan activation of entertainment, but in every single time out. And it's just weird. I don't know why they're not showing up. I know they're doing $7 tickets for this Saturday's game against Old Dominion. I'm not really expecting great attendance for that because it is Thanksgiving weekend. It's against an ODU team that's not necessarily a team that's going to draw a ton of fans in. And credit to the ULM fans that were there because there was a decent number of them there too that made a little bit of noise. But I don't know, people show up. I mean, I'm not an A-State fan per se, but it makes me a little sad to see a team like that has so much history behind it and has a good team this year that people just don't show up for. So I don't know what the answer is or the chief reason why people aren't showing up, but they need to, in my opinion.
Man, I got two comments to that. Number one, believe it or not, Old Dominion's favored by 4 on the road to Arkansas State this weekend, which blows my mind. But I can remember when App got into the Sun Belt, watching games. I think we had a couple Thursday night games. I think wasn't it at Arkansas State where Jalen broke his ankle?
Yes, I was there. I was at that game.
Their stadium, they have the little stream of the river that lights up in the end zone, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a beautiful stadium. And man, when they were good, the crowd engagement was phenomenal. I always kind of looked at it and said, man, I'd love to go catch a game there too. To see a team that's on the rebound and on the rise to have less attendance in a game later in the season that means a little bit more. It's disappointing.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, that water feature, some people like to make fun of it. I think it's very cool. I mean, how many times do you talk about baseball stadiums when they've got the water feature?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the cooler aspects. I think it's a cool thing that they have. That night I was there. I don't think it got lit up because I don't think they scored any points as far as touchdowns were concerned. And I think they don't light it up for field goals or something maybe. It was an interesting game. But yeah, I mean, first of all, Jonesboro is very underrated as a town. When I went there, I was like, man, this place is nice. I didn't know what to expect out of Arkansas. I was in Memphis for a job when I went over the line to go see the game that night. And Memphis has got, the downtown area, but Memphis isn't known for being all that safe of an environment. I felt very differently in Jonesboro. Everybody was very inviting. You just got to see stuff that just a beautiful little town as far as I was concerned. And the stadium, sure, it's got some stuff that is maybe a little outdated or the design is kind of funky. So is App State's, but because of the setting, it makes up for a lot of that. And that's what A-State, I think, is trying to do with the inside aspects of the water feature and stuff. Underneath the bleachers, at least on that visitor side, I didn't ever get over to the home side. There's tons of walking room. I mean, if that stadium's packed, it seems like the egress and ingress would be fine because it's so big. So it seems like it would be a very convenient stadium and a very fun stadium to go and take a part in because of the setup being so good to get in and out of there. And nice and easy to find, too, as it kind of rises up out of the ground.
It does. Yeah.
Right there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more it's going to take. Maybe it's hard to say more thrilling victories because, like you said, they've been in so many one-score games. So the cardiac pack aspect should be something that continues to do well and do favors for them. But, what stuck out to you most in the game? I know you talked about that game-stealing interception. Jalen Rayner seemed to have a very good game, productive-wise. On the passing side, Hardy went off on the running side for ULM. Yeah. I mean, is there one particular moment or stat line maybe that sticks out to you?
There's not necessarily one in particular because I think this game had so many just high-level plays and players on both sides. But I will say the one thing that stuck out to me, and I didn't get a chance to ask Butch Jones this in the presser because I was asking about other stuff, but Corey Rucker for Arkansas State, obviously he's a standout. He's been talked about all year long, and I talked about him a lot after the South Alabama game. He didn't quite break the receiving record on Saturday. He came very close, but he had an awesome touchdown on third down. I think 3rd and 10 from the 32, and they just threw it to him on a little crossing route, and he took it the distance, made a couple men miss and scored. And then I think that was Rayner's. I think that was his first touchdown of the day. He threw 2 others. One was, I think, to Hunter Summers in the back of the end zone, and he looked like a gymnast, went up and made an incredibly acrobatic catch. And then Courtney Jackson hauled one in on a streak route, just right down the middle, ran right by his corner and scored. I think one thing that's very underrated about this A-State team is the variety of weapons, because all the talk is rightfully going to be about Corey Rucker and Jalen Rayner and their relationship. But they didn't have their first-string tailback for this game. Zach Wallace had to come in, and he stepped up. He had 18 carries, 130 yards, and a score. And then those two other receivers, Summers only had that one catch, but it was a touchdown. I think Jackson only had 2 or 3 receptions. One of them was the touchdown that ended up being the winning score. So I think that's as a football team or any sports team, you can have a really good player that everybody's talking about, but if you don't have depth, you're not going to go very far, because if the other team shuts them down, and I wouldn't say they totally shut Corey Rucker down, because he did have that touchdown. He had 6 grabs for 49 yards, and that's a pretty modest day by his standards. But when they do take your best player away, okay, how are you going to react to that? How are you going to respond to that? And I think A-State did that. They asked other guys to step up, and they did step up. And Jalen Rayner stepped up again, and he only had, I think, 170 yards, but he made the big plays when he had to. So did that defense. So did Travion Thomas. A-State, to me, they feel like a team this year. They have that standout in Corey Rucker. They have Jalen Rayner. They have all these guys that you can talk about individually, but they play so well as a team, and they're so connected, I think, both from the tangible football aspect and from the intangible culture aspect. I think that's what makes this team really interesting, is that they have these standouts. They have these guys that are going to be on Sports Center and make you say, wow, that guy, he could go to the league, or he's, one of the best in college football, yada, yada, yada. And then you look at them and you're like, as a team, they don't have any glaring weaknesses. They are very solid from a depth perspective. And I think that's a big reason why they've won these one-score games, because, when your best player goes down or when he's having a bad day, who's the next man up? Who's going to step up? And all their players have. And their stars don't melt in big moments. They don't shy away. They don't have reservations about making the game-winning interception or catching a big touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. They just make plays. They win football games in a very easygoing manner. And I think that's what stands out to me the most, is that just the way they win. They don't have to be flashy. They don't have to have one area stand out, because they just play a solid brand of football. And I think a lot of that's coaching on Butch Jones's the coaching aspect of it. They just play solid football. Should they have beaten ULM by more? Maybe. ULM got out to a quick 7-0 lead, but from that point on, I felt like A-State was pretty clearly the better team. They just make a few mistakes here and there. ULM was opportunistic. They take advantage of them. I think if A-State played up to their potential all year, they probably have 8 or 9 wins. There's just been those moments where they haven't, and you have the Texas State game where they get blown out and they don't even look like they belong on the same field. And then they have moments like this game. You're like, well, if they could have made the plays in that game they made in this game, I mean, you're looking at least a close game, if not a win. So they're weird in that aspect. They're like Arkansas in that aspect. They're probably going to lose one that they shouldn't, and maybe win one they shouldn't. But I think overall what stands out is just they play a brand of football that's, I guess, boring by what I call the social media aspect of it. They're not going to have all these crazy plays. Corey Rucker's, going to do something that looks like prime Antonio Brown every once in a while. That's normal for them. They're used to that. But they play a team brand of football. They play complementary football, and I think at the end of the day, that's why they're 7-4. And coaching's a big part of that too.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds just like a balanced, well-coached football team.
Exactly.
Comes to play prepared. I mean, so just the notes that I have, I didn't get to watch any of the game, just kind of looking through the stats and whatnot. I mean, pretty balanced game statistically. Back and forth, obviously 3 ties. I think they got the go-ahead touchdown with about 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and then the game went in an interception, but forced 2 turnovers. And I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, but winning teams this week in the Sun Belt forced 18 turnovers and only turned the ball over once.
Wow.
So that's a recipe for good football. And ULM, I mean, Ahmad Harding, 204 yards, carried the ball 30 times. They control time of possession. So to have a running back, if you were to tell any coach in the country, like, hey, your running back's going to go for 204 and 2 touchdowns today, you'd be like, oh man, we're going to win this football game. So to come out with the win when the opposing running back does that to you, a lot to be said.
And speaking on Hardy, he had, I think, 12 carries for 38 yards in the first half, Second half, their first score of the game that tied the game at 14, he had, I think, a 72, 73-yard touchdown. And then from then on, I mean, he wasn't running for 70 yards every play, obviously, but he would go for 5 or 6 yards a pop. And the other guys in the press box were like, well, where was this in the first half? This guy was a non-factor. And all of a sudden, ULM's offensive line started moving A-State's D-line all over the place and just inside zone or a trap run up the middle, and it's 5 or 6 yards a pop every time. They just couldn't stop them. Until they did late, and then A-State sealed the game defensively with their pass defense. But Hardy was a joy to watch. I mean, that kid, he can bounce off guys, and Coach Jones talked about this. Like, he just bounces off everybody. It's like he's made of rubber. I mean, he's like a bouncy ball, just bouncing off guys, and then once he bounces off somebody, he's gone. I mean, you can't let that guy get away, or you're not catching him ever. So yeah, it was quite special to watch.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating. This is now ULM's 5th straight loss after a hard and fast start to the season. So unfortunate for them, but they still have one more chance to go bowling. They just have to beat their arch nemesis, the Raging Cajuns, who are looking for that first spot in the West. One more thing before we go, Sam, and then we'll move on to the next game. But what are the likelihood, or what are the chances, or what are the thoughts on A-State possibly finding themselves above Louisiana in the final standings? I guess, actually, remind me, did they win head-to-head? I got to pull that up. I think they lost to...
Yeah, I think South Alabama was the only team that beat.
That's a good question. Right. I think they lost to Louisiana.
They did, yes. I just pulled that up. They lost to Louisiana.
They did lose that one.
Well, thought process then on what they.
I'm looking here. Could they? Because let's see.
No, I think they're eliminated from the championship game, because if Louisiana loses, that gives them 2 losses, and they have the head-to-head. So
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, I was looking. I was like, I don't know.
The only thing that I thought might keep them, I guess that would eliminate them. But so, if there's a 3-way tie in far as the 6-2, that's what they would all end at if there was a 3-way tie for first, just as standings are concerned without tiebreakers. The reason I thought they might still be in it is because South Alabama beat Louisiana. Then Louisiana beats A-State, but A-State beat South. So all of them kind of have beaten each other. And when it comes to the 3-way tie, the first is head-to-head, but I don't know if they all have the same record, if they would be able to eliminate one but not another for a head-to-head, because they all have the exact same record. So that was my question mark. I don't know if I've fully understood, after reading several times the tiebreaker rules, how that would work out. That's why I think they might still have a technicality to stay in this, even though, yes, they did lose to Louisiana head-to-head. I've got to get some clarity there. And
Louisiana just has to beat Monroe, and no one has to do math.
That's true. It's a good point. Yeah. A-State fans are hoping for something different, and we'll see what happens. But, Sam, before we let you go, finally, tell everybody where they can follow you and all your writing.
Yeah, so obviously doing writing for College Football Dogs, and real quick, you mentioned that 5th straight loss for ULM. I didn't know this till I was leaving the press box, and I saw an A-State writer writing up his story, and I just glanced at his laptop. This is ULM's 15th straight loss to Arkansas State, and I know ULM. I was doing research about them earlier in the week for my preview, and I know they hadn't gone to a bowl in like 12 years, but I was thinking surely, even in like the terrible Butch Jones years, the first 2, or Blake Anderson's last year, surely they would have beaten them. But at 15 straight losses, that's pretty rough. But yeah, you find me writing for College Football Dogs. I do a lot of NASCAR stuff for Yardbarker, still producing some content for them in the off season. I also write about NASCAR for Field Level Media. They syndicate. I probably somehow accidentally ended up in your local newspaper, because they syndicate to a lot of local newspapers and places like Reuters and stuff like that. So I'm there. And then I'm going to start doing some more NASCAR stuff for heavy.com soon, so you'll see me there. And then you'll see me writing about Razorback basketball for Yardbarker, and they're currently up 100-26 over Maryland Eastern Shore with 6 minutes left. We'll see if they hang on there. So 2 basketball programs in the state of Arkansas, because A-State basketball is pretty good this year too, I hear.
They are.
But yeah, that's where everybody can find me. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sam. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll have you back on when we get to a bowl game for A-State.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. See you, man. Good. good stuff, man. He is a friggin' expert, and he's not even a full-time A-State fan, but you can tell he actually puts time and effort into his stories. If you read his stuff, impressive across the board. I don't even really follow NASCAR, but I've read a couple of his NASCAR stuff, and it's just easy reads, does a really good job. So definitely, if you are a NASCAR fan, go check out Sam's stuff. And so let's get on to the next game here, which was South Alabama going up against Southern Miss. A little bit of a surprise early on, Marv. What are your notes on this one?
I mean, yes. So Southern Miss scores the opening touchdown, goes for a 2-point conversion and gets it, and that's it. That's pretty much all they really had. Gio threw for 3 touchdowns. Pridgett caught 8 for 102 and a touchdown. USM actually dominated time of possession, 39-21. South Alabama just lived by the big play. So Gio's 3 touchdown passes were 21, 32, and 40 yards, which, that you can get dominated in time of possession if you're having the big plays, and they had a 57-yard pick six. So, like I said, Southern Miss jumps out, aggressive, goes for 2 after scoring the first touchdown. Love it. You're 1-9. What do you have to lose? But that's how they scored after that. I think they had 2 field goals the remainder of the game. So,
yeah. That's actually what's going to be my talking point. Is my MVP for Southern Miss is actually kicker Connor Gibbs, as he hit a 59-yard field goal as time expired in the first half, which cut it to 14-11. You thought, what's going on here? Yeah, Southern Miss isn't really going to find the end zone a lot. We've seen their touchdown to interception ratio as far as the quarterback play is concerned this year. But, hey, 1 kick, and they were down just 3 points going into the locker room. And, of course, like you said, after that, it was pretty much all A-State. All South Alabama. And you talked about the time of possession. It's that quick strike offense that South Alabama possesses that they don't really have to hold the ball very long, and they can still be insanely dangerous. We've seen that over the years with our favorite team being that type of an offense in the past. But Gibbs adds another 28-yard field goal to make it 28-14. Looked a little respectable before South Alabama added one more with Fluff Bothwell to make it 35-14. But this may be one of Southern Miss's better performances of the year, as sad as that is to hear for them, because they continue to lose in the win column. But 1-10 and 0-7, they have a real possibility of going completely winless in Sun Belt play this year. But yeah,
unfortunately, that doesn't get them the number 1 draft pick. As bad as it sounds, the off season is probably going to be exciting for them because they're going to bring in a new coach. And anytime there's a new coach, you start to look at what's it going to look like in the near future. It stinks. We talked about this in the past couple shows. Like Southern Miss has got a storied history, right? I mean, I think this conference is going to be better when they get things right because they have passionate fans, and when they're good, the conference is better. So really stinks to see them, 1-10. Nobody wants that. But move on, get a new coach, bring in a new culture, and see what happens.
Yeah, there was a crazy rumor going around because it just doesn't make sense to me. And through the Thundercast, I've now think we've confirmed the opposite is true, and that it's whatever way this rumor got started was a fallacy. But earlier today, there was a rumor going around that Coach Huff from Marshall has been interviewing for the head coaching job at Southern Miss. That was unconfirmed to start with, and now through Thundercast guys, which I believe they have a little bit of insider information they're probably getting, have confirmed that has not been true. However, Attack Eagles on social media, specifically on X, did share 4 names. Well, one of them was Huff, so they shared 3 other names. So they're looking at Hartley, who is a tight end and assistant head coach at Georgia, as a possibility. Okay. Woods, who is a SMU offensive coordinator, which would be a good pick with the year that Southern Miss is having this year. And then Faulkner, who is the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator, who could be greatly rewarded for the turnaround he's allowed Georgia Tech to have after getting out of that triple option type offense that they've been running for so long. And having success downfield, as we know, with what they'd done early in the season, and kind of continued to have a good season the rest of the way, really. I mean, didn't they just beat Miami, wasn't it? No, Miami came back and beat them at the end, right?
I thought that was the team they lost to. It could be incorrect.
They beat NC State. That's the one I'm thinking of off the top of my head because that was like a Thursday night game the other week. So that one definitely.
The Huff thing did not make sense at all. When you said that, I was like, what? No, Huff, he's doing a heck of a job at Marshall. I wouldn't. If he leaves this for a bigger job, no offense to Southern Miss fans, but I wouldn't even consider that a lateral move at the moment.
No. It's definitely a downgrade at the moment. Like you said, with history and tradition, Southern Miss to some people may have just slightly more than Marshall, but I would not. I'd put them pretty much even keel. So if you're making a move like that, it's all about the money, and you better be getting a lot more to make a move when you're going to have to go fix an entire program like that. Yeah. You stay at Marshall. I mean, literally, you have the inside track to the championship right now.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
And I don't see Southern Miss paying that much more than Marshall. So, at least that's been confirmed as a no-go. But, obviously they need new leadership. Hopefully they get a spark. Once again, conference will be better when we don't have teams that are 1-10.
Yeah, totally agree there. So the next one, a little bit of a shocker, not with who won, but how it was done. Georgia Southern takes down Coastal Carolina 26-6. Okay, I saw the win coming, like I just said.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this score spread, I guess I should say?
Man, so Coastal turns the ball over 4 times. The game had the potential to be close. Bennett for Coastal breaks off a long run when they're down 13-3, gets it down to the 3-yard line, and they can't punch it in. They could have made it a 3-point game or a 1-possession game at that point. They were 2 for 12 on 3rd down. Once again, turn the ball over 4 times. You just can't win like that. I don't think Georgia Southern played their best game, to be completely honest. They didn't run the ball very effectively. French threw for 294 and 1 touchdown, but they had to settle for 4 or 5 field goals. So, once again, not to be redundant, but, man, you can't win when you turn the ball over 4 times. You can't get the ball down to have 1st and goal from the 3 and not punch it in and want to be in a game. And, one of the comments earlier, people not really happy with Beck. They're skidding right now. I mean, App made them look better, but I thought Coastal had athletes, and I thought that they would be, honestly, I thought they'd be 7 or 8 wins right now and competing for the spot the East to go to the championship game. So I can kind of get some of the frustrations that their fans might be having.
Yeah, I can see it too. I mean, if you told me that they were 5-6, maybe I wouldn't be overly surprised. I think I kind of had them mid-pack. I'd have to look back at my notes, which, again, since we're doing this kind of satellite for both of us, I don't have my full set of stuff I usually have on me. But the 2-5 in conference play is the part that I'm surprised about, especially if you tell me, like, they go in there and they beat App State relatively easy. I know that game was a little bit closer there for a little while, but it never felt like it was fully going to be not Coastal's game, right? I mean, that part was like, oh, they're always going to kind of be the front runner here. Can App kind of pull back in front? That obviously did not happen in this one. And was it Vasco throw 2 interceptions in this game? Was this one of those turnover games?
He threw 2, and then Kim came in. I think he threw 1. I think Vasco fumbled as well. He did not have a good game.
Yeah. Kim was the one who fumbled. So, okay. Yeah, you're right. 3 interceptions, 1 turnover by a fumble, so 4 turnovers total. Actually, no, yeah, Nathan Thompson recovered a fumble for Coastal, so that one wasn't a turnover on the downside for them. That was in the positive side. Riley is a Georgia Southern fan, and he had a question earlier on X today. We do have one more that from Adam Hicks that I didn't get to when App was up, and we'll get to that at the end because he has a couple of questions. But Riley wants to know your thoughts, and since we're on the subject of this game, we're not going to preview fully next week until Wednesday. But if App gets beat by Southern and becomes ineligible for a bowl for 2 straight seasons, does Clark get the boot?
All right, so a little clarification. It wouldn't be 2 straight seasons. We went to the Avocado Bowl last year and beat Miami in the monsoon, but that would be 2 out of 3 seasons. And Georgia Southern also held us back from getting into the bowl game 2 years ago, I think in overtime. You know my opinions on that. I think the answer is yes. as I've told you and Seth and all of our App fans, like, I hate to say that. Like, if there's a guy that you want to pull forward to lead the App State program, it's a guy like Sean Clark. Like, that guy bleeds black and gold. That's the guy you want running your program. But in all reality, the most disappointing seasons that we've had since we transitioned have come under his tenure. So with the buyout dropping in half on December 1, I unfortunately would be in favor of us moving on.
I'll say no for the aspect of just got the win against James Madison. And to me, this game is a little different. Should you win it at this point? I don't know. I don't know if they'd be kind of fit. Do you have the early line on that in front of you right this second?
2.5. Georgia Southern minus 2.5.
I would agree with that just because of the home team. You're typically looking at the home team, but I would agree. This game is essentially a toss-up to me at this point because we've seen kind of the two-faced of each of these programs throughout the season, right? I don't know if I could count on either of these teams to go win me a game or close one out. So I don't really know who I can trust more. But having said that, this is one of those rivalry games, like even if App was really good or Georgia Southern was really good, anything can happen in this game. And I don't think you fault a coach for a rivalry game, especially one that has the history of this one, right? Because most of these games end up being very close one-score games. Obviously, there's some that have gotten out of hand either direction, but I just don't know if you'd say he'd be dismissed for that. And
it's not one game. If Clark is let go, it's not one game. It's a culmination of there's a lot of people in the App State fan base that think the program is heading in the wrong direction. I mean, the Texas A&M one was great. I think he had a 10-win season in his first season, or maybe it was 9. But there's been a steady decline since then. And I don't know what kind of message it sends to the fan base and the donors if it's like, hey, we're condoning not making bowl games. Like, I think that just the standard at App State is so much higher than that. I think it sends the wrong message if you keep them around, just to be completely honest.
Yeah. I got one more question, but I do want to get to Iverson's point here. He says it's weird seeing the Carolinas down like this in respect to App State and Coastal Carolina. He says the East is better when we're both on top. I think some JMU fans would have something to say about that, but I do get your point. I mean, that App State Coastal Carolina rivalry is certainly building, and it's in a good way. It's building on Coastal side because a lot of App fans did not care about this game or think it was much of a rivalry. Well, the fact that Coastal continues to win over them is helping it build tremendously because there's a lot of hate towards Coastal and their fan base when App can't get the victory there. But I also want to cover this. So, okay, they get this big win. Let's say this game was closer. Maybe they had lost to Coastal Carolina. They'd still have already qualified for a bowl game. But with this last game, let's throw it to the other side of Riley's question. Let's say, what if Helton loses this last game? Again, this is more hypothetical because they're already 7-4 and they're still in a spot where they have a shot, an outside shot at the conference championship game going into this coming weekend. But would you think that there's any chance that Helton's on the hot seat at the very least if they were to lose this one? And let's just pretend that they had lost this game here, I guess, just to say they were barely qualifying for a bowl, but they're still faltering towards the end of the season.
So it's hard to pretend that they lost this game knowing that they won. I think if they lose to App and lose a bowl game, I still think Helton stays, but his seat going into next season is pretty darn hot, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that just because of where Georgia Southern expects themselves to be. They whether others agree or not, they see themselves as the same mold as JMU, the same mold as App State. They expect to be here at the top each and every season. So that's why this conference is so much fun, though, right? Because it's a little crazy to me sometimes when we're talking about firing and coaches on hot seats, but at the same time, there's a reason that's always in the conversation. It's because people want to see their team win. They hunger for it. They thirst for it. It's what they want to really see happen each and every year. And that's why so many of those fan bases care so much. and they want to see other fan bases in this conference come up. Those A states come back around because it's more fun when you guys are all in there talking trash and having a back and forth. Obviously, stuff over the line is, hopefully not going to be a big part.
Snowballs are not allowed.
Yes,
I mean, listen,
snowballs.
tradition breeds expectations. That's all there is to it. And
Yeah.
for teams like App State and for teams like Georgia Southern, who have traditionally been phenomenal at football, won multiple national championships each before making the transition up. Georgia Southern, won the conference, won 8-0 in conference in their first year. They've been to multiple bowl games. Same thing with App. Like at some point, you got to say, man, 7-5 is not good enough. We don't want this. We know we can do better. We've proven that we can do better. But it's going to be a big game between App and Georgia Southern. I mean, two teams that hate each other have the potential to. Georgia Southern can keep App out of a bowl game, and App can keep Georgia Southern out of the conference championship game.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a lot to play for. But no, I don't. To bring it full circle, I don't think Helton gets fired if they lose this game, but I believe it could be the nail in the coffin for Sean Clark.
Gotcha. Iverson saying he's not sure Southern knows his. I'm sure Southern does know of his history in November, yes, which hasn't been great since he's been there, really. So it is a little bit of a thing he's going to have to overcome as he tries to get over the hump there. But obviously, if he gets to a conference championship, Marshall goes down and they beat App State, I think all of those concerns go away. You're not talking about a hot seat. You're not talking about question marks. Even if they go to whatever bowl and they lose it, and I think everything's just fine there in Statesboro, Georgia, for the Helton family to continue being there for a little while. All right. This one was a slugfest, man. The total score spread on this one was 52.5, and the Cajuns end up beating Troy 51-30. Talk about this second quarter to me, because that's otherwise this game is neck and neck.
Yeah.
You can't eliminate a quarter, but if you could, Troy stood a good chance to win this one.
So, Louisiana scored 30 unanswered points between the second and the beginning of the third quarter. Now, here's the craziest thing, though. Troy gets it down to a one-touchdown game very early in the fourth quarter, and then on the ensuing kickoff is returned 98 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute.
Talk about, heartbreaker.
Just crazy. But, I'd moved Louisiana down in my power rankings last week because, your starting quarterback goes down, right? And Woolridge, as we had talked, kind of like the unsung hero of the conference, like just a winner. Backup quarterback comes in and goes 18 for 24 for 323 and 2 touchdowns. So they will be going back to the number one spot, spoiler alert, in my power rankings for this week. But, man, what a shootout. And listen, Troy, 3-8, their last couple games, they've looked significantly better.
Yes.
I think once again, we all knew that there was going to be a drop-off there. They lost so much from coaches and players. If I'm a Troy fan, I'm kind of optimistic off of what I've seen the past couple of weeks to think that, hey, like we're gonna make a bowl game next year. But yeah, Louisiana, once again, lose your starting quarterback and come back and put up 51 points, score 30 unanswered. Pretty incredible. And once again, turnover bug. Troy turns it over 3 times to 0 for ULL.
Yeah. Troy is now the best 3-8 team in the
I
country.
would agree with that.
I would agree with that too, actually. I really think, like you said, there's a second quarter that got out of hand. This score looks – it's hard to say not truthful for how the game really felt. But, I mean, in the end, the Cajuns did pull away. So you can't say it's like it's closer than the score appears when the freaking thing's 21-point difference. But it did feel closer for the majority of this game. Obviously, like you said, it got within, what is that, field goal game?
It got within 7 points. I think it was like 12 minutes ago. I was just thinking about this. Like, imagine the gut punch the Troy fans had to feel. You give up 30 points in the second quarter and then a touchdown to begin the third quarter. And then you get it to within a touchdown. You think momentum's back on your side and you give up the kickoff return touchdown. I mean, just what a wild, wild game.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that I don't know. Maybe Warren can tell us this. If Troy and Louisiana really see each other as rivals of any sort, because this one is one that I would like to see happen on more of a traditional rivalry weekend than Louisiana versus ULM.
Yeah, you're never in-state rivalries are always going to take precedence over that. I would say in baseball they're probably pretty darn big rivals, but yeah, when you got two teams in the same conference that are in the same state, that's kind of gonna that's your rival.
Yeah, no, I just think that the heat there between Troy and Louisiana and what they were capable of where they're currently at kind of thing would just be better suited for your rivalry weekend than Louisiana versus ULM. I think
what do you say ULM and South Alabama and make them switch rivalry weekends at the end of the season?
Yeah, that's true. I guess you don't want to get rid of Troy. Well, I mean, Troy's not playing South Alabama this weekend because they wasted that one on a weekday game. I don't like how that happens.
Yeah.
I've done the math on this so many times. There's no perfect way where you can get most of the intense rivalries on rivalry weekend, because then it's just like you'd steal one where it could have made sense somewhere else. You know, it's just
you should though. I mean, college football, the last weekend of college football is widely regarded as rivalry weekend, and you should make every effort to keep it that way, especially, you know, if there's something to play for. Like this App State Georgia Southern game, like there's something to play for both teams. Troy, South Alabama, not so much. I guess Cajuns and ULM, there's a lot to play for in that game. Cajuns are trying to wrap up a spot in the conference championship game. ULM's trying to get bowl eligible. So I don't know. I like the way I like the old school rivalries. I think you should try to keep them intact as much as possible and save them for the last week of the season.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, the traditionalness of it is good. I just sometimes wish, you know, those last games for the Sun Belt meant a little bit more. Like you said, we've got a couple that are standing out this year. I mean, we've got Marshall JMU, which means a lot.
It's going to be really good.
App State Southern, which we just talked about. ULM Louisiana, which we just talked about. But then the rest of them are like, you know, like ODU playing Arkansas State the last week of the year.
I just think, well, ODU doesn't have a true natural rival. I mean, they just don't.
Well, they have the royal rivalry with JMU. I mean, that's an in-state rivalry in Virginia. Yeah. But I think that, like,
ask a James Madison fan how much they consider that a rivalry.
No, they don't. I've seen a poll done, I think it was from a JMU account, that asked which team they considered their biggest rival, and App State blew everybody else out of the water. It wasn't even a close race. I don't even know if ODU was second or if Marshall may have been second. I mean, that's how down the list they are. ODU, I believe, thinks
most of the teams in the East, they would say App State's their rival.
Yeah, I want to know what Marshall's would be, because I think a lot of their fans would say App, but I'm not sure if the players really feel that one anymore because it's been so long.
The history just so separated. Yeah.
True. Yeah. But we'll get off the subject of other teams when we're talking about the rivalry. But I just like this one. This is one that maybe if we're not doing it on a rivalry weekend, and like you said, for obvious reasons, it probably doesn't need to be there. This one is one that I would absolutely say that they need to highlight and put on a weekday game throughout the season. This one, because of where they have been traditionally as far as the upper part of the standings, and the fact that both fan bases can fill up their places for a game like this on a weekday night. This is one that I think would do well, do numbers, especially again if they're both in it pretty good for the
basically what you're saying is, hello ESPN, next year for a Thursday night game, this will be a good one.
Yeah, I would try and be in attendance for something like this. That's for sure. Warren is saying
both teams are going to be good next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Unless the Cajuns really have some sort of big exodus for some reason, I agree with you. I think Troy's building quite well. Goose will probably be back. If not, or whatever, Caldwell has been looking much better. So
does Ward graduate? Is this his last year? Or is he?
I believe he is a senior, and Fields may also even be a senior. So they may lose both quarterbacks, but they've got a guy named Dwayne Lynchfield, or otherwise known as Lunch, and his nickname is such because they talk about him going to work and just bringing his lunchbox. You know, so like his nickname is Lunch, and he should be one to watch out for. You had your quarterback lose over to Houston and he's kind of in the same mold as that, where he could beat you with his
Okay.
legs or his arm. Threw for more passing. I don't know if it was touchdowns or yards than the great Arch Manning did in the state of Louisiana, but obviously didn't have the last name, so he did not win the Player of the Year, but probably should have statistic wise. So. And Warren does agree. It would be good for Thursday. He also mentions that Southern Miss is becoming Troy's second rival, which that one makes sense. I mean, you've got some regionality there, and that one makes sense as well. So, yeah, either way. All right, let's get into the stunner of the weekend, because App State beating JMU, as much as it was a surprise, I don't think it was an absolute stunner, because App State has had that offense throughout the year. It was just whether their defense could round into form.
Yep.
We haven't seen this type of offense out of Georgia State at any point in the season. They had that game against Vanderbilt. They still didn't have a 52-point output in that one. I was blown away when I started checking in on the scores on this one, because
I texted you guys at halftime. I was like, buddy, this is a track meet. All right, so weird stat. Georgia State scores 31 in a row, also in the second and third quarter, to just kind of start to move away from them. But, man, you're talking about 966 yards of total offense, obviously 96 points. And Texas State did turn the ball over 4 times. Story of the night, turnovers. You can't do that crap. You can't turn it over 4 times and expect to win a game.
Nope.
McLeod threw 2 picks. Can't remember the guy's first name, wide receiver for Georgia State, Fleming. 5 catches, 88 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not a bad day, but yeah, this one really surprised me. I didn't think Georgia State was capable of scoring 52 points. Just didn't see it.
Yeah, Dorian Fleming is
Dorian Fleming. Yeah, I mean, listen, 44 or 52 from Texas State does not surprise me at all. But man. And in San Marcos, I'm sure already has some very positive things to say in the comments here in a couple seconds. Here we go.
Here it is right now. Artie says, word on the street is we're the Clorox toilet bowl bound team. GJ and staff are unrivaled in game time adjustments. Maybe GJ was out late celebrating his new contract. Embarrassing loss in all caps for the Bobcats. And yes, there is no doubt about it. When you look at all the scores across the Sun Belt, Georgia State outscored every single team. So it's not to say that they couldn't have done this to anybody, which is kind of a weird thing. But again, we've seen what Vanderbilt's done this year. Been very impressive, even in some losses to SEC teams. This team did beat them. They were capable of these types of performances. They just didn't put it all together. And it seems like they really put it all together in San Marcos. Maybe they just like playing in Texas.
I don't know. Here's got to be the frustrating thing for Texas State fans is, they were positioned to win that game, and they were right there in the hunt if Louisiana slips up to go to the championship game. And here you got a team that hasn't won a game in conference yet coming to your house to put 52 on you.
Yeah, I'm just – I said and I questioned Texas State by 20.5 just because they had won comfortably before, but this one was like Georgia State, when you looked at it, they only had a few games really get out of hand in any real direction. Most of them were kept pretty close throughout the season. So I did question that, but at no point in time did I question whether Texas State would win this game. And like you said, keep themselves in contention for the West. Definitely a pretty good looking bowl with the record that they had. It's really, some of their only losses were, for the most part, respectable, right? You had Arizona State, Houston State, as far as records were concerned, right? Until here lately, where they dropped, obviously, this one. And then who else did they lose to that was a little bit of a surprise? Is that A-State that they lost to?
I can't recall, but yeah, I mean, yeah, this one hurts. Instead of being 6-5, you could be 7-4, like literally one game away from going to the championship. Who does Texas State have this weekend? Who do they end the season with?
They have South Alabama. Their loss was to – they're two a little bit more surprising losses, which it's not that surprising now. At the time, Old Dominion beating them was a little bit of a shocker.
Yes.
And then they lost to Louisiana. So they didn't really lose to any other complete shocks, I guess. The way they lost to Sam Houston State was a little bit of a shocker. and obviously unfortunate for them in that regard. But yeah, this one was definitely the most shocking at this point.
Listen, I still think the Old Dominion loss is a little shocking. Same with Houston. I think they're 8-3, so they're a pretty decent team. But yeah, the Old Dominion loss in this one, it's going to be a season of what ifs for them. Unfortunately, I think they had very, very, very high expectations. I think most people had them at top of the West, and now they are mathematically eliminated from representing the West in the conference championship game, and got a tough South Alabama game this weekend.
Yes, very, very tough. That's not going to be easy. But this is one of those ones now where you say, okay, did this piss them off? Does this help them flip the script? This, to note, again, we'll touch on this on Wednesday's show, but this is a Friday night. Actually, it's not even night. It's Friday afternoon.
Right?
3:30, 2:30 Central Time kickoff. So really, you don't have work on Friday? Yeah, check this game out. Because
that game, if the South Alabama offense is clicking and the Texas State offense is clicking, that could be it'd be a lot of fun to sit down and watch as you continue to digest your turkey.
Yeah, you're getting those leftovers from the day before. This is one that may have some fireworks on the offensive side of the ball. Again, you just see this score here, over 90 points of total offense. You could see something similar on Friday afternoon. I know Artie is disappointed with how this season transpired. I was one of the ones who had lofty expectations for this Texas State Bobcats team, and they have not been able to follow through on that. But hey, there's always next year, and we know now that DJ Kenny is back for more years at the helm. If he continues to bring in some good recruits, so if he can round these guys into better form, there's still reason to look out for Texas State in the West for years to come. But now we will jump over to the team that's in the driver's seat in the East, which is the Marshall Thundering Herd, who came from behind. Actually, were they really behind? I guess they just pulled it out in the end.
They did.
Versus ODU, 42-35. Another score slugfest to end the night of action in the Sun Belt. What stuck out to you in this one, Marv?
Dual threat quarterbacks. So Braxton for Marshall throws for 210 and 3 touchdowns, runs for 140. Colton Joseph for Old Dominion throws for 227 and runs for 158. If both of these kids stay around the conference, the East, just you better have a middle linebacker that can spy, because both of these guys are electric with the ball in their hands. And the Marshall quarterback, Braxton, am I saying it right?
Braylon Braxton, yeah.
Braylon Braxton. I've questioned his ability to, hey, we're down, you need to go throw the ball and win us the game. But 210 for 3 touchdowns with 140 yards on the ground, you just have to account for that guy on every play. And Colton Joseph has put on a clinic, in my opinion, all season. He is super, super fast. But once again, threw for 227 or ran for 158. Once again, Old Dominion turns the ball over twice, and that's the story of this game. But, man, both quarterbacks just put on a show, in my opinion.
Yeah, they absolutely did. This is one of those ones where, football doesn't really have the – I don't know what you call it. In soccer, there's penalty kicks. Could you have a quarterback off to decide a winner at some point? Because I would have watched whatever competition they had. Who throws the most accurate through the tires? Who does? That would have been a fun one for this. But I wanted to note that AJ Turner did return to the field from Thundering Herd, which was important. Did not have an electric game, but again, in this one, you had enough contributions from other aspects where they didn't need him to be full speed or to rely on him heavily. He carried the ball 10 times for just 53 yards, but he averaged 5.3 yards a carry because of that. So I think he's going to be okay. They're probably going to lean on him more in this James Madison game coming up. But again, I think that was an important one that I wanted to touch on. And we questioned ODU kind of being the favorite coming into this game, and it was
the favorite, and then the favorite this week. I think ODU has been favorites a couple times this year. I've had to scratch my head. We know that defense typically is scrappy and keeps them in games, and with Colton Joseph with his dual threat ability, they can look dynamic on offense. But they've been favored in a lot of games that I just kind of had to scratch my head and be like, what are the odds makers in Vegas seeing?
Yeah. One thing I think they see is the possibility of the defensive performances. That's been kind of the difference maker for ODU in a few of these games.
But they have not played as well defensively the past 4 weeks as they did to start the season. They made every game ugly, but they've given up some points in the last couple of weeks.
That's true. They definitely have let off the gas on the defensive side of the ball. I think maybe it's the prospect that they could look like that again, maybe coupled with an offense. They flipped the script, I guess you could say, right? Like the offense just shot themselves in the foot a lot in the early part of the season. And then they were doing the opposite on the defensive side. The defense was like keeping them in games, almost winning them games to some extent. And now it's kind of done this like slow migration where they've swapped places because the defense lets up 42 against this Marshall offense, which isn't ultimately all that surprising. Maybe the total number, but the fact that Marshall outscored them in some regard wasn't completely shocking. G. Wills is saying he wasn't going to go to the game, but he decided at 4:50 to drive down from Northern Virginia. I think that game started at 8 o'clock. Yeah. And he got to the game with 6 minutes left in the first. Woo. Rough. Well, it was a rough ending, but man, I say it was probably a really entertaining game to be at, right? I would think that just going back and forth like that for most of the game was exciting to be in the crowd for. But we'll have to see. Dennis saying that go Rebels and Wolves up because ODU is favored against A-State by 4 this upcoming weekend. But G. Wills is saying ODU top 25 first half team, bottom 25 second half team. Ricky Ronnie specialty.
Yeah, that's talking about hot seats. That seat might be getting hot.
Yeah, and it was so weird because he was so thankful for the fans that had started to show up and get loud, and their student section has been packed here lately. So full credit to the ODU fan base for coming alive and really getting behind this team. But yeah, faltering down the stretch and now appearing to not be going to a bowl game unless some kind of waiver needs to be granted. However, I will say this, and I want to say this so that everyone hears it. If your team is sitting at 5 wins only, don't expect any chance in going to a bowl game because there's going to be plenty of 6-win teams available for them to choose. In fact, there are going to be some 6-win teams that are not chosen for a bowl.
Are you taking into consideration that 12 teams are going to be in the playoff and that opens up 12 spots for bowl games?
But I think the way that I don't know. I've seen a lot of people say that the numbers don't add up to allow because the bowl games still take place. It's just that they now become part of that 12-team playoff.
That's true. You got 4 teams that get buys, though.
Yes.
I'm just trying to look up Old Dominion's past couple years. How long has their coach been there?
Oh, that's a good question. Ronnie, I believe he was there the year before COVID. So the COVID year, I don't believe ODU played football.
Okay, so that's 20. They did not. So since then, 6-7, 3-9, 6-7, 4-7. Has not had a winning season. And before COVID, they were 1-11, 4-8, 5-7. Their last winning record was in 2016 when they went 10-3. And gosh, why can I not remember the quarterback's name? Because he played for the Panthers for a little while.
Heineke.
Yeah, he was a baller.
He was, yeah. I liked him. I was a big fan of him. I kind of like those small quarterbacks who just make it work, like they can work magic. Yeah, they're fun to watch. So a big fan of him. It's surprising. You question whether ODU has the money or the desire to buy someone out. They
got plenty of money. Trust me.
Have you seen? Okay, so I'm now in Pennsylvania. We all watch ESPN Plus for our Sunbelt needs, right? The ODU commercial runs like every time that there's a commercial, right? Have you seen this one?
No, I haven't.
Oh my goodness, you must not be paying attention then, because there's no way you can miss this with how much they put it on there.
Dude,
it's a woman talking about ODU Global, I think is what they're really pushing.
Okay.
I am up here in Pennsylvania watching a hockey game on ESPN Plus before I came downstairs. That game is between Carolina and Dallas. There's no reason to have anything Sunbelt related on this program. The ODU commercial still runs every time they go to commercial break on the platform. Every time, man. It's insanity. I mean, great for them. They're getting a lot of publicity through that. platform. Hopefully it's doing well for them. Obviously, if they have a global aspect to their university, they're bringing in money, a la, Liberty. I would not consider
think they're
ODU.
bringing us that kind of money.
Well, they're not at that level, but I think what they're trying to do is bring a level of their university to the potential of that kind of reach, right? You don't have to live in Virginia to be a student here type of thing, right? Again, I would not consider ODU any kind of diploma mill. They're much more respected than that and everything else. But I think this is an aspect where they could bring in more money indirectly and also, benefit students who cannot be there full-time on campus type of thing. So interesting thing. I do want to, this is such a great comment. G. Will says, we can reach out to JMU. They know how to file waivers.
They know how to successfully file for waivers.
They definitely know how to file for waivers. So I like that.
I'll wrap this up on ODU. They get plenty of money. They have nice facilities. They're getting a brand new baseball facility, if I'm not mistaken. And they are in a recruiting fertile area. I mean, Tidewater, Virginia's got athletes. Yes, a lot of them go to Tech. I get that. And they get poached all over the place, but they've got the money, they've got the facilities to compete. Might be time for a switch.
Yeah. Here's a good one that cements that argument. G. Will says 5 years, but played 4 because we didn't play the COVID year. No winning seasons. He's 6-12 versus the East, 0-3 versus JMU and Marshall. 2 wins total versus App and Coastal. Mm-hmm. So that's a little rough. Although here's the aspect you have to think about here now. Okay, you've got some promise on the offensive side of the ball. You've seen the defense play well. If you move on from him, how many of those kids now leave the program and you're literally doing a rebuild from the total ground up? You've got players gone, coaches gone. Now you got to bring in both.
So I would say that, once again, kind of like the App State conversation that we had, if you keep them and you can't put it together where defense and offense are balanced, and you have another 4-7 season or 4-8 season, you run the risk of them organically leaving, and then you're stuck with a new coach coming in with absolutely nothing. So I don't know.
Yeah. Iverson saying ODU getting a new baseball facility is a big boost for the conference. Yeah, it absolutely is, especially a conference that's so big into baseball, as Marv, Seth, and I now know after running a series or show on baseball specifically. Did better numbers than basketball across the board. It wasn't even close. So we know what this conference cares about other than football, and it seems to be baseball. So that's a big aspect of that. Yeah, my thought process with this is, with all the movement, the parity on the player side of things, you want some consistency at the coaching position. Yes, there's some question marks about getting it done, but at the same time, is this one of those ones where, you keep them around and, oh my gosh, you see this explosion in success, maybe in years 5, 6, 7, and you're like, wow, we almost got rid of this guy after year 4, because G. Will says it was 4 years. They only played 3, as he was correcting his earlier statement of 5 years. But again, 5, 6, 7 may be like, wow, we are either playing for the conference championship or battling for the conference championship every year. And so that's an aspect of this. Obviously, you don't know. You just have to take a chance where you think it makes sense. The question mark is, what makes sense, right? So I don't know. I would stick with him at least one more year if it was me, just because of what I've seen promise-wise from this team this year specifically. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely on the hot seat unless ODU's just okay with kind of like, hey, it's going to be slow. We're okay with it, type of thing. I don't know.
I don't think they are. I think if you're right, if they keep him, it's one of those like, hey, buddy, you go to a bowl game next year, you find a new job.
Yeah. And G. Wills is saying, today's world of the transfer portal, being in the 757 rebuild could be quick. I think the aspect of that is certainly evident and possible, but you're running into the same type of thing that maybe Georgia State's seeing down in Atlanta. That's another place where you should have all the talent you should ever need. Well, the problem is some of that talent doesn't want to stay there. That's where they've been. They want to go to these other destinations So I think that's why you're seeing some of these kids go to the Techs and other ACC schools and other even Sunbelt schools, because, maybe they say, I want a crowd that's fully there all the time, as, JMU and App State have been putting on the field. Even Marshall has been capable of doing that type of thing. I don't know. It's kind of like what comes first, right? Obviously, success, and ODU is going to be in the same boat. They're going to have full stadiums every single time and crowds that go crazy. Just with a little bit of success this season, they've been really close to that already. So it's strange, and I don't know exactly what you'd put more weight on. And obviously, we don't know that. So I'm sure we'll find out soon enough when season wraps up and whatnot. But G was saying, and yes, never again is our baseball team going to have to host at South Carolina as a national seed. That was embarrassing and a wake-up call. Yeah, we've got ODU coming in with the new stadium and Georgia State also doing that as well. So the baseball should be stepped up in a big fashion, as we know some of the other member schools also have done some work to their baseball stadiums to get them better up to speed, or, even better than they already were in some cases. One more quick point, and then we can get into some final points here. But Adam Hicks on Twitter earlier today, how likely is it that a 5-win App State team gets a bowl invitation? We kind of covered that one, so we won't really continue it, because that one would be, if they beat Georgia Southern and they lost that Liberty game.
Yeah, I think just from, if you're going to give a waiver, considering what happened, but I don't know if App State would file for a waiver at 5 and 6. I don't know if they would.
Yeah, it's a good point. The rest of his questions were actually related to that. I didn't read the whole thing well enough before jumping onto the show, but he asked the kind of things we've kind of already gone over, which was the CFP aspect, creating more bowl slots and whatnot, which we know there's probably one or two kind of because of that, but most of them are still kind of being played just as playoff games. Kind of a weird aspect that we probably won't fully realize until it happens this year. And then Dan had not really a question at all, it's just a comment from a JMU fan. It wasn't Snowballs that lost the game for JMU. It was coaching. The head coach took it for too long. How much it matters for both fan bases. OC has struggled all year, did so again. No scores after halftime, was an offensive coordinator play calling issue. So, yeah, I mean,
not going to disagree with it. I mean, I think App's defense played well, but James Madison seemed to lack the explosiveness really after the first quarter. They didn't seem to have the explosiveness, and I'm not going to say that we made the best defensive adjustments, because I don't trust our defensive staff to make those adjustments. So I'm not sure what happened. I think the block kick was just so deflating for James Madison. They could never get back in it.
Yeah. I was just pleasantly surprised, but the beginning of that game, I was saying, okay, this is kind of what I expected. 14-0. App can't move the ball, can't stop them. Just
my wife's over there freezing at the end of the first quarter. I saw this glimmer of hope in her eyes. She's like, "He's not going to make me stay the whole game. We're going to be able to leave at halftime."
Oh, that's great. Did you ended up staying to the final whistle type of thing?
No, we left after James Madison threw the pick with 6 minutes ago.
That's exactly when I walked out. And I hate to do that type of thing, but just like you, my wife and kid were already in the truck waiting on me to get to they had left some point in the third quarter, and I was like, I can't leave. At that point, it was a 1-score game. I was like, I'm not leaving. 1-score game, can't.
Yeah, that's kind of what I told her. I was like, yeah, we're not gonna just leave. And then when they threw the interception, I got that look like, it's been enough. Can we go? And I was like, you know what? You've stuck it out here with me for 4 hours. Let's go.
Yeah. We had to get to her aunt's house, and we didn't want to get there at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, which had we stayed and gotten into some traffic, who knows? So we definitely got down the mountain to Charlotte a little bit more. Ben James did ask when the Sunbelt basketball show is going to be live this week. I believe that's going to be Tuesday night. Again, this is kind of a different week because of holidays and things with family could come up, but tentatively Tuesday night for the live basketball show. And as always, Wednesday with TJ for the football preview. And unless Marv wants to jump on with us on that one too. But
Yeah, Wednesday's probably a no-go.
yeah, that's why we like to spread it out. We like to people give time with their family. I'm the only one who's going to get yelled at for being away from family for too long. I'll take the brunt of it. But Warren's letting us know Troy beat UTSA in basketball. So good win there for for Troy over UTSA. And we'll see if we can continue to right the ship, because Sunbelt basketball not off to the hot start that they were last year at this time, with JMU and App State leading the charge. Troy, though, does have those 3 straight 20-win seasons. We'll see if they can get it to a 4th straight, but they are doing pretty well to get to that point already this part of the season, the early season aspect. Marv, I guess that pretty much wraps it up. We're right at like an hour and a half here. You got any final thoughts before we say goodbye here?
No, man, just looking forward to rivalry weekend and see we have the potential to have 10 teams bowl eligible, which would be phenomenal. I don't see all 10 being bowl eligible, but yeah, looking forward to wrapping up the season.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with my 8. I feel more comfortable with 8. But yeah, if we could somehow get 10 and get them all to a bowl game, that would be great. I won't have any hate for that at all. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you guys for Basketball Tuesday and Football Wednesday. See you later.
See you.